My grandmother was 81 when she got a divorce. She was like, wait a second, I only have so many years left and I want to die in peace.
Come on now. I've been thinking a lot about love and business, and because what it takes to be successful in love sometimes is the direct opposite of what it takes to be successful in business. That's right. So he's like, I'll take the 6 kids, but you can keep that PhD. You know, a PhD is worse than a black woman with HIV. And I was like, whoa.
What?
A woman's job is to be fit, friendly, and fun. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. We get in this house, all hell broke loose. One kid lost their mind. Yeah. Another kid ended up in a domestic abuse relationship. Another kid gets shot 4 times. They tell you how to become successful. They don't tell you that it can almost kill you, that you have to heal after you reach that goal, about all the hits you're going to take.
Welcome to Making Progress, a podcast where we discuss and discover what it means to find success in the journey of making change. I'm your host, Myra Reneé. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Sagashus Livingston to the Making Progress podcast. Dr. Sagashus is the founder of Infamous Mothers. She's an author, scholar, and transformative leader who embodies what this podcast is all about: real people doing real things and making real progress. With a PhD in English literature from UW-Madison and groundbreaking work centering the experiences of marginalized mothers, Sagashus has created a movement that challenges us to rethink who we exile and whose expertise we value. Welcome, Dr. Sagashus.
Thank you for having me.
There was somebody I was just talking to. Oh, now it's going to come to me if we keep talking. But there was somebody I was just talking to about how they are in a relationship and it's like serious sickness and they're just caretaking and caretaking. And I don't know if you've seen that on socials about how it's like it went viral on TikTok about a lot of Black women talking about hospice. Getting married. Yes, hospice wives. Yes, hospice wives. And how a lot of men are not telling the truth about their health. Like they're getting married or into new relationships at our age.
Yes.
And men are not being fully honest, and they are looking for kind of like these caretakers, which is a very different thing than what you're talking about. Yeah. But I don't know why I brought that up of like, yeah, like what do you do, I guess, like when you are in a relationship and then someone is like, I'm sick.
So
that's not what you signed up for.
Well, which that's the issue about him being sick isn't the issue. The issue is we've had a bumpy decade before that.
Yeah.
So the time that you were supposed to be getting it right and coming out of what you were going through, now you're sick. It's like, damn, like I stuck it out. Because I was waiting I had like 6 months of the life that I thought we were going to have. And then all these ailments kicked in. And it's like, man, I can't go nowhere.
Yeah.
But it's not ideal. And he's not the nicest sick person. Because sometimes
that happens too. I hear that all the time.
He's not because there's a part of him that's like, I didn't expect my life to go this way.
Yeah.
So now there's mental health that's coming in, and there's a depression.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I'm sitting here, I got to take care of everybody. And you are like, I can just sit in this room and play on my game all day because life is hard. And I think because the caretaking falls on the women.
It's a natural, or it's either biological and also kind of like we're conditioned to be in those roles.
And that's it. And so great person, funny, smart, but our relationship, we kind of backed into it. It wasn't, it was a rocky 10 years.
Yeah.
And then when it was getting good, sickness came in. And so now you have to decide who you want to be, what you stand for. And it's hard. It's a very hard situation.
I think it's a reminder. Well, for me, that is part of the reason why I got a divorce is one, I realized like how short life is. And I'm like, I'm 44. I'm not happy. I mean, there's like a lot of other reasons, but like I had to kind of like really check in with myself. And I'm like, okay, I have this many more years of my life. What do I want that to look like for myself? And, you know, it's hard you know, like you don't want to separate, you don't want a divorce, but you know, I just had to, for me, that's what made sense.
Yeah.
I'm like, I gave this a really good run, 18 years.
Yes.
It's a long time. I put my all into it, like literally my all into it. I feel like I did my best, and there was nothing left to do. But I want to enjoy the last years of my life. Can I share a story about my grandmother?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is my grandmother on my mom's side. She was, I think, 81 when she got a divorce. 81. So she was diagnosed with cancer. She had like 3 different kinds of cancer. She had lymphoma, melanoma, and then she had leukemia as well. And so she knew that she literally knew, 1, I'm in my 80s. 2, I have 3 types of cancer. I only have so many more years of my life, and I am not happy. I am not comfortable in my own home. So my grandfather, who was like grandfather by marriage, he was the kind of man, like he would get home and like everyone would like turn the TV off, sit down, like sit up straight. He came in the house, you would just get scared. Like you don't know why, but like he just had a presence and an aura about him that was like very mean. We would sit around the table. I remember I would spend summers with my grandmother. We would spend time around the table eating for dinner, and his presence, like he would like command like people, like, you need to eat more of this. Why aren't you eating bread? Drink all your milk. And no one would talk the whole dinner. No one would talk. It would just be quiet, and he would just make commands. And so that's what I would imagine. I had a great time with my grandmother before he would get home after work. But to imagine like that's what she dealt with all the time. Yes. And so when she hit 81, it's like she was like, wait a second, I only have so many years left, and I want to die in peace.
Come on now.
So she moved, like she got an apartment, she moved like a couple of blocks, and she was old fashioned. So at first she was like, I'm not going to get a divorce. I'm just going to separate because, you know, we don't do divorce. But then he was in his feelings and was like, well, if you're going to leave, I'm going to file divorce. And she's like, go ahead and do it. And he filed for it, and she was like, that's 100% okay with me. And she got a divorce in her 80s, and it was a beautiful thing. I'm sad that it took her that long, but she got to visit China before she died. She was one of her dreams, and she lived those last few years, in joy and peace.
It's the whole I'm gonna die in peace part.
Yeah.
That right there, that rearranges your whole life.
Yeah.
When you are, so I turned 47 last Wednesday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. But I was sick on my birthday. And I had been sick for almost a month at that time, right?
Yeah.
And something as simple as breathing, I couldn't breathe. And so you really realize that you are not immortal. You're not invincible. And that really made me rearrange some things in my life. It made me think about things differently. Yeah. It made me become more clear about what matters to me. And so when you say that, the whole thing about dying in peace, when you realize that death is a possibility, a guarantee, actually. Yes. The idea of how do you want to go? You can't predict how you're going to die, but you can control what you can control until that moment comes. Yes. Right? Yep. And there's something beautiful about saying, I choose peace under whatever the circumstances are. Yes. Yep. And then being proactive about getting that. That story will live with me forever. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
No, thanks for listening, because sometimes I'm like, when I'm doing this, I want to hear from everyone else, so much, but I just feel, it's to me, it's such a powerful story, and I forget about it. Yeah. And I've been doing a lot of reflection on my grandmothers and how they chose to kind of live and choices that they made. I remember my grandmother on my dad's side would always talk about how she really sacrificed her whole life for marriage and children. And she was a poet. And her mother was like one of the, few Black women in Gary, Indiana, that was like the first to graduate from college. And she was very like, she had kids, but she was very like about it, about her, travel and her, her career. And so she was like like kind of like very progressive woman for her time.
Yes.
And then my grandmother wasn't. She just was like kids, marriage. And she struggled, within her marriage. And she would always talk about how like she looks back over her life, or, did when she was alive. She would always say this, like she would look back over her life, and she had a lot of regrets. She did write a book with her mom, and they wrote poetry together, but she had a lot of regrets.
It's funny when you tell that, when you share that, because and you probably, I think maybe you know this. So on my dad's side of the family is 4 generations of sex workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my great grandma owned a brothel.
Yes, I remember.
And my grandmother was one of the ladies, well, she was a child at the time, who worked in that brothel. She was in the market.
Yeah.
But on my mom's side of the family, my grandma was a traditional stay-at-home mom.
Wow.
But what was interesting is my dad's side of the family always seemed to be happier, like the generations that came from that.
Yeah.
More free.
Yeah.
More independent.
Yeah.
Whereas my mom's side of the family, very sad, very serious, very judgy, a lot of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that as much as my grandma loved my grandfather, adored him, when he died, I noticed that she started living. Wow. Right? She died when I was 8. She started traveling. She started doing things.
Wow.
And so I think one of the reasons why I never married is because I'm like, we haven't figured this out yet.
Yeah.
And I'm not about to make this life like, I got all these kids, but don't worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not about to make this lifelong commitment with this person until I understand what this means for me.
Yeah.
And it took me until I feel like yesterday to kind of understand what marriage can look like and should look like for me.
Yeah.
But everybody I knew who had gotten married ultimately ended up divorced on my mom's side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, why don't I just bypass that process by figuring this piece out?
Yeah.
And so when we talk about this, I've been thinking a lot about marriage. I've been thinking a lot about love and business. And because what it takes to be successful in love sometimes is the direct opposite of what it takes to be successful in business.
Yes.
And so you're thinking, showing up, like you're on a dating market, like, I have a PhD. And folks are like, you have a what? I remember this guy telling me, a PhD is worse than a Black woman with HIV. And I was like, whoa.
What?
Right. So he's like, I'll take the 6 kids, but you can keep that PhD. And I was like, what? So I had no idea that was working against me on the dating market, right? And so it's a total mind screw.
We're like the most educated group of women or anybody in the United States.
Listen, I had a man tell me that a woman's job is to be fit, friendly, and fun. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Like I had no idea, because I was going by the criteria that the world has told me about what it means to be successful.
Right.
Right? And so when you ask a lot of men in the dating world, what matters is not the things that we've been taught that matters. And it could be toxic masculinity. It could be all of those things. But the point is, give me the handbook. Let me know what the rules are, because often we grow up in a household and we don't know the rules.
Right.
Right? We think we know.
Right.
And so we get into these marriages and then we're clashing. We get into these long-term relationships, we're clashing.
Yeah.
And then you look up and this person that wasn't acting right for 10 years ended up sick. And you're like, man, this is not what I signed up for. And I want to die in peace. I want you to die in peace too.
Yes. Yes. I wonder what it would look, how we would all live differently if we had that mindset every day of like, life is short. What would we do different? What would we want changed in our lives,
There was a time when I was in a relationship with my kid's dad. So the second and third kid, they share the same dad, and he was cheating on me. I found out he was cheating on me. And at that point, I was in my early 20s. Because I can find out today that my partner's cheating. I'm like, yeah, okay, going on over there with her then. But in your 20s, in your 20s, you're like, in your 20s, that's your whole identity. But in your 40s, you're like,
I remember like thinking when I was younger too, like if someone ever cheated on me, I'd be like, I would just leave them. And now I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, we don't need to talk about it or, like that happens.
Happens. Like the point is, it's not my identity, right? Because in my 20s, it was my identity.
Yeah.
Like, you cheated on me. Oh my! Because let me tell you, since then, I've had partners that had kids. I mean, like I done been through some stuff.
Right.
So that was like minor league stuff, but I was suicidal is my point. I was about to kill myself because I didn't know what to do with that hurt. And I remember I was sitting in the kitchen in the dining room area and I was contemplating how I was going to do it. And this television show popped on. I don't remember the TV being on, but I felt like it popped on. And this little man that looked like Bernie Sanders was like, if you're thinking about killing yourself, don't, because tomorrow you might change your mind. And I was like, wow, I am thinking about killing myself. But what if I don't want to do this tomorrow and it's too late? And so I started thinking. So then another voice said, okay, well, Sagashus, if you're not going to kill yourself, if you're not going to lay down and die, you have to figure out how to stand up and live. And so I spent most of my life from that moment on figuring out what it means to stand up and live. But I've always been kind of a student. I figured it out when it comes to business. I figured out when it comes to my values. But when it comes to love, I've always been a little skittish about that because Phyllis Hyman, and I don't know how true this is, they said she committed suicide because of a relationship gone wrong, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, I got to understand this because I know that this could be the one thing. They said the prisons are filled with men who didn't know how to handle a heartbreak, right? Like I know love is a very powerful thing.
It's so powerful.
And before I fully commit, I just need to understand it a little bit more. And I think I've spent a lot of years trying to make sense of it. Yeah. So I love that we started this conversation talking about divorce.
Yes.
Because it opens up the door us to have a conversation about this. I think that this is a switch, but I'm going to circle back. I remember I was at dinner with these very powerful women in Madison. And who have been married forever. And they were like, somehow we got on the subject of sex. They were like, I've never had an orgasm. I'm like, you've never had an orgasm? Y'all married.
It's not uncommon. It is not uncommon though, for people to be married and long-term relationships and not have an orgasm.
And I'm sure because you get to hear everybody's stuff.
Yes. As a therapist, family therapist, this is like not uncommon.
Well, I was shocked because it's like, listen, I'm very clear that in life has given me enough pain. So I got to be able to balance that with enough pleasure. And that's a piece of the conversation for me.
Absolutely.
But what I was thrown off about is like, so how are y'all doing this? Y'all like Miss Seeley, like from The Color Purple, like he just climb on top of me and do his business. Like what's going on?
And they said, yeah, or what?
And that's exactly what they said. But I'm talking about powerful women.
Yeah.
Who, when they come in the room, you shake because they're so powerful. Powerful in the boardroom, but disempowered in the bedroom. And that opened the door for all types of things about love, respect, consent, boundaries, self-love, self-worth.
Yeah.
So to start with divorce, that's like the lid. But when you open that lid, it's so much that comes from under that.
I think for me, it gives me permission to kind of explore more of who I am, to step more into that, and then also be more curious of like, what is love? I feel like for me, I look back and, because just hearing you say like, you kind of think about like, what does that mean to you and how do you define it? Because of the church, I remember I was like explaining this to someone else. I was like, they kept saying we couldn't even date. They're like, you court, you don't date people.
Yes.
Have you heard that?
Yes. Yes.
And so I remember being like, you know, in my early 20s, and I was like, but what is that? Like, I don't even know. Like, first of all, we don't even use that language.
Yes.
Like, you know, like who uses like, oh, you're courting someone.
Yeah.
Like, what year is this? I don't know what that even means.
Yes.
And they're like, well, and then they never could explain what that means.
They
I'm
never
like,
can.
explain the difference between dating and courting.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get the, like, what is actually, are we just saying the same thing, just using different language, or, and they never could explain it. And so I mean, I got married. I mean, we had always been friends.
Yeah.
But when I look back, like, it happened fast. Like, we got engaged in February after just a few months of being like, yeah, we think this is a relationship kind of thing. And then we got married in July.
Yes. It's quick.
You know, and I think about like the evolution of Myra, how much I've changed over time. You know, it's just been a lot of change, and I'm still changing, and I'm still growing, and I'm excited to give myself permission to do that some more.
So when you talk about the evolution of Myra, you talk about the changing. My mom did relationship something in the church for a while, relationship counseling, and she said that couples fall out of love every 10 years, right? And so I'm like, well, what you supposed to do then? Like, when do you fall? So if you fall out of love every 10 years, how many years on what year do you fall back into love? And is there a process, and is there a strategy? And why y'all not telling people this? Like, it just so happened folks had to go to this counseling if they wanted their kids to come to this school. But why are we having these more open conversations? Marriage is such a private and quiet thing. And I've noticed that a lot of times, so we're very intentional about how do we build our career. We're taught to be intentional about that. But marriage and relationships is this very cryptic, quiet, of wing it as you go type situation, even from the beginning of dating, right? Like, I was taught that when you date, my family was like, you can't date nobody shorter than you. That was the criteria. You can't date nobody shorter than you.
I'm not gonna tell you what my grandmother would say.
Nobody told me about character, integrity, consistency. Then it was
love languages.
There was no sophistication. And so I had this guy that was shorter than me, and he had a wandering eye, and he was good to me, but he didn't fit the standard, right? According to my family. And so there's a blueprint for how to be successful publicly.
Right.
But we're still trying to figure out this thing privately.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So the fact that we're so open in this conversation is one of my favorite conversations.
Same.
And I appreciate that we are having this.
You know, your mom is so interesting. So, okay, so hearing about her doing that, I don't know if you've heard or talking about like the 10 years falling out of love. Esther Perel, I don't know if you follow any of her work. So she always talks about how you will be in love. I think she says like 3 partners over your lifetime. You'll have 3 loves. And she goes, for some people, it's with the same person because you change together or you evolve together, but you fall out of love and then you have to kind of reinvent yourself as a couple, or you leave that person. I don't know if she says 2 times or 3 times, or I don't know. I don't quote me, but that's basically like the gist of kind of what she's saying is you will fall out of love because you will change. And if your partner doesn't come with you or change, or the relationship doesn't change, you will then find someone else.
I can see that.
Yeah, me too.
I can see that. And I think if you look at the story about Lot's wife in the Bible, and everybody's running, and they tell her, don't look back, and she looks back and she turns to a pillar of salt. I think sometimes when you're in an evolution in a relationship, sometimes you're running from who you were to who you're becoming.
Yeah.
And if your partner's looking back
Right.
and you're not looking back and that person's turned into a pillar of salt, what are
Yeah.
you supposed to do?
Yeah. I'm not going to be salt for you.
Right. Right.
Right.
So what are you supposed to do? And there is, I think I have a strong and solid relationship with God because there was no way I could raise 6 kids and accomplish what I've accomplished. That was all faith. Every day is faith.
So talk to me about that journey of like, how did you, and I've heard bits and pieces. How did you go from being a mom of 6 kids? I'm thinking of even like your identity. You know how like we kind of play these roles in life and we identify, and it ends up being kind of our identity.
Yeah.
So how did you go from like being mom of 6, single mom, to I'm educated, PhD, own a business, I'm in Forbes, I'm in Essence. Like how, I don't know where you want to start, but how did you get from there to there? Because we see you now, we see the Sagashus now. What did the Sagashus look like then? What sparked that? What sparked I'm not just this. I'm not what society says, or society is not going to identify me as this. I could be all these things in this.
I think because I was always that Sagashus. So I was the Sagashus that was going to end up in Forbes and Essence before I was Sagashus that was a mom. As a little girl, you know.
So you knew it then. That's where it started.
Right. So there was, I talk about, and there was when I was a Bravo woman to watch, the story there, I think it opens or begins with, I was a little girl that used to call the White House because I wanted to talk to the president. You know, back in the day, you had to press 0.
Yes.
So I'm like on the phone with the operator. Well, where can I send your call? Yeah, I would like to talk to the president. Can you connect me to the White House? So I was like 6 doing that. And the Sagashus that went off and I never wanted kids. The Sagashus that went off and had kids. Well, let me back up and give my parents. My dad knew that as a dark-skinned woman in the society that we lived in, I was going to have a hard time. And so he was always big on bigging me up, always big on making me feel beautiful, always big on celebrating me. And my dad was a crack addict, right? Wow. But he was so much more than that.
Yeah.
Like so much more than that. And my mom was always like, she's going to be brilliant. She's going to be somebody. So even though their relationship was toxic and my dad was the addict and my dad had 3 women living with him at the same time, like my dad was...
Wait a second.
My dad had 3 women. And let me tell you, he had this white woman. Oh, no, she always would say, Ike, I know you're taking my check. Of course, my dad's name is Ike, right?
Okay.
Right. Goodness. That's not lost. The irony of that is not lost, right?
Someone was Tina.
Yeah, but did we have a Tina? I'm sure you had a Tina somewhere. And I remember him saying, Ike, before you take my check, can I just keep 80 cents for my pantyhose? Oh, girl, you should have took that out before. No, I need all of that. Right. So I grew up in that household where my dad was hard on these women, but they also loved him because he had so much charisma and personality. But let me say, he wasn't giving up no money. As a matter of fact, he was taking yours. But the sex was amazing out here, right? These women were lining up.
There must have been something
for this sex, right?
Charisma.
Right? This charisma, this personality. So when you grow up and that's your dad, right? So he's like, yeah, I treat them like that. But you know, I see you in this way. Like, I inherited this lifestyle, but I named you Sagashus. I wanted something different for you.
And
so
your
you
name
gotta have a
is
sense
what?
of purpose,
Sagashus.
wise, shrewd, calculating. And it's always funny because Sagashus is right across from salacious in the dictionary, which means pornographic. And I'm sure he was aware of that, right? So one letter difference was the difference between the pole and the podium for me.
Wow.
Right? And so he was very intentional about like, this is my life. This has been my family's life for generations, but I want you to go down this path.
Now, seeing those interactions, like your dad sounds like he adored you.
He did.
Seeing the interactions that he had with other women, was that confusing? Or did it just make you feel even more special? Like,
no, because my mom always talked me through everything. My mom was like, you see that? Let me tell you something about a man. A man will leave you and go sleep with another woman and come back and be like, yeah, I did it, but her sex was mediocre. She wasn't all of that. That's why I'm back here with you. A man will walk on the lake with you and hold your hands at 100 below zero and tell you how much he love you. And when you finally give it up, he'll say, B, what took you so long? So I grew up in a household while we're baking cookies. She's having these very real comments. She was like, look at your daddy. He the main one. Right. So, and then my daddy come in like, yeah, girl, you know, your job as a woman is to make a man laugh and feel good. But I really want you to get on the news and be like Diane Burns. It's like, daddy, then which one you want me to be? Right. So I knew that within him, there was this tension of, I want the best for you, but I'm still programmed how I'm programmed. So there's moments where I'm going to tell you my dream for you, but I'm going to always go to my defaults because I don't have anything past a 9th grade education. My mama went to jail for check fraud. My daddy went to jail for murder. I was being molested as a kid. I don't have much to give you, but I can give you this name, I can give you this charisma, and I can give you my hopes for you, right?
Wow.
And so once I understood that about my dad, and I knew, because my siblings, Paul, Sean, Kyle, Chandra, I'm the only one with this odd name, right? So I understood that he's like, in his own way, I see where I've gone wrong and I want to break this cycle. And that's only thing I can do for you is throw you out this burning building. Now, what you do outside this building is on you. Yeah. And my mom wasn't that much different. My mom raised me to do exactly what I'm doing, but she also resented me when I did it. Wow. Because she's like, well, wait a minute, if you're gone, I don't know how to drive. Who's going to drive me around? Like, I didn't think this through. Wow. I want the best for you. But what am I left with? Yeah. I've raised this daughter. Yeah. That's everything I want her to be, but then I raised you to go away from me. Yeah. So now I resent you. Yeah. Because you are everything I want you to be, but now I'm left by myself. Yeah. So those weird contradictions, those people, my parents sent me here on this road. Wow. But then life didn't love me the way my parents did, right? And what I mean by that is I end up having those kids because I went to this boarding school, applied to those 17 colleges, got into those 15, but couldn't go nowhere because no one told me I had to apply for financial aid. So I go back to the south side of Chicago, and I thought I was going to be a Spelman, when I thought I was going to be a Smith. And now folks are like, you're an Oreo, you're a sellout, you're this, you're that. So now I got to fit in, and I got to fight every day. Yeah. Right? I'm fighting literally every day. And so now to get in, to fit in, you're doing things that you didn't think you would do because you thought you were better than that. Like I thought I was going to have sex when I got married. But living on the south side of Chicago in the projects, it's like, no, this is a totally different path for me. Yeah. So I had these kids. And I remember, and that's one of the questions, this girl walking down the street, because I'm fitting in now. It's like, I'm here, I'm bitter, I'm angry, I'm here. And this girl said, yeah, B, you think you better than the rest of us? You think you Harvard, you Kennedy King like the rest of us? I'm sitting there looking like, well, wait a minute now. I'm just angry. But, and I want to be here with you. But we all thought we was Harvard. We just in a situation. Oh, you're here because you feel like you're, I never thought I was Kennedy King, even with this baby. Let me get the hell up out of here.
That woke you up.
Quickly, right? And so I ended up in Madison because me and my brother got into a fight. And I didn't know how to leave. I'm like, my brother's blind. He's trying to fight somebody. I'm about to crack you across your head with this lamp. And you ain't gonna be able to do nothing about it because you can't see. So I left. I applied to grad school to get away from my family, to get away from my brother. Not because I didn't love him, but because it was so much toxicity. Yeah. Yeah. And I came here, but I didn't plan on staying here.
Madison does that.
So I ended up having more kids to sabotage my success here. Really? Right. So I went to go look for the trouble that was in Chicago, the trouble that I was comfortable with. And he moved to Minnesota. Great. I don't mind spending a week with you because I'm running from this life. I can't say that I quit. So I'm going to sabotage myself. I'm going to let them put me out. But unfortunately, the university is not like the church. They're like, we don't care about you being pregnant. You better figure out how you're going to graduate. Matter of fact, we're about to put you on a payment plan because you don't need to go back to Chicago. We're going to go on here to make sure that you live in campus housing, pregnant and not. So I say that to say the plan was always for me. I was born with that sense, and it was cultivated in me to be somebody who did extraordinary things. The kids wasn't the plan. But then when you get them, you're like, I can't let my kids get molested. I can't let them get beaten. I can't let them get pimped. So I have to protect these kids fiercely. And I have to give them the best life I can give them. I don't want 6 kids to have to break generational cycles. Let me be the one person to do it so they can have a chance at life.
I have a question about that, just being a mom as well. Like, so I don't know if you know this about me, but there was a time that I was in foster care when I was growing up.
I did not know that.
And I have gone through like some traumatic experiences as well as a child. And, you work so hard. And I think that was probably a lot of my motivation to stay home with my kids for 6 years during those like formative years. And then also just creating this like stability. And I feel like I've sacrificed so much.
Yes.
And it's so hard sometimes to see, like, I don't know if this makes sense to you. Like they're doing well and they've kind of, they haven't experienced that same type of trauma and you don't want them to, but then there's a part where you're kind of like, these little ungrateful.
These kids are assholes.
Right, okay.
These kids are assholes. Yeah. These kids are assholes.
Aren't they? Like, because I'm like, y'all don't know, y'all have not gone through anything. And also like the financial piece too, like the things that I used to like fix for myself to eat after school and like not complain about anything. Like I would make, like, if we had cheese even just in the fridge, I'm like, I'm going to make something, okay? If there's like there's a few things like peanut butter, Spam, cheese, like,
and a sausage.
Right. Yes. So we made it work, and I just think of my kids, like they open up the fridge and they're always like,
ain't nothing in
here. And there's like a whole fridge or a whole pantry of food. I'm like, y'all can't be creative.
And a deep freezer.
Yes, and a deep freezer. So do you ever feel, I don't know, I don't think not resentful, but like, I don't even know the word. Do you ever just feel like there's just this disconnect between of like what you experience sometimes as a child? And I feel like I still was always grateful. And then I think of my kids who have everything that I didn't have and they're ungrateful. Or at least it appears that way sometimes.
I always tell my kids, I'm like, do you know what it took for me to get here?
Right. They don't.
Like,
they don't. They really don't, though.
Have you ever seen The Walking Dead?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm like, I lived in the middle of the zombie apocalypse popped off. I had to put all 6 of you little fucks on my back. Find a safe community for you. After I'd slayed these people, folks would try to attack me and take the little Spam I had. They tried to rob and take you.
Right.
And then you get here after I done did all of that and got into this community. But I ain't got no Jordans.
Right.
I would throw you out there with them zombies right now. You mean you ain't got no... But we're the poorest ones in the community.
No, you're not. Right. But even if you are, right. I ain't even caught my breath yet. So I had this whole experience with my oldest daughter. And she's at Howard graduating in May.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah. Or we're in May. She's graduating this weekend.
Month.
Yes. Next weekend she graduates.
Weekend, okay.
Yes. And we went through this whole, and she's like, I don't want to paint a picture. She's probably out of all my kids the most frugal and more mindful of like money. Cause I think she has seen us, kind of get from like not having anything and then like, the earning power, like once I joined the workforce again and just how our family has changed over time. But when it came to her getting into college, I will never forget this ever. She got into USC and they were only offering, I think like $5,000 to $7,000. USC is like $72,000 a year. And she was like crying around the house for like about a month. Off and on. And she was just like, well, y'all don't have the money? Like, she was like in shock. Like, y'all didn't save this money for me to go to college? And we're like, I'm like, girl, we are not, like, this isn't the Cosby Show. Yes. Like, we just got here. And that was like the term I used too. Like, we just got here. We just got here. We don't have that saved. And there's 3 other kids that are coming after you that aren't going to get scholarships like you.
That part. Because I knew 2 of my kids were going to go through people. I said, this one right here, I have to come up with a plan for you, baby, because you're not getting in people. You're not getting in people.
You just know, you're like, this kid is going to do, and this one, you're going to do, you're good, you're going to be fine. but you're just going to need a different type of support.
You're going to need a different type. You know, it's funny since we're being open about this because my kids, so we buy a house. Mm-hmm. First house we ever had. So we go from projects to campus housing to middle income housing to I buy this home, right? Mm-hmm. We get into the house. I'll never forget my son. I'm showing him the blueprints for it because the basement wasn't built out. So I'm building out the basement.
Yeah.
First of all, I show them the house. My son gets there and he sees where his room is because the basement isn't built out yet. So he doesn't have a room. He's living on the guest side of the house. The original owners of the house, one side was the residence, the other side was commercials where she had her chiropractor business. Mm-hmm. So there's no closets because it was a clinic, right? Mm-hmm. My son looks at the room and he says, after all I went through to help you get here, this the best you can do for me for a room, huh? I'm one of your oldest, and you can't even give me a closet? Boy, you ain't never had your own room. You crying about a closet? So then I say, now I'm feeling guilty because I promise I'm going to give you a better life. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, we're going to build out the basement. You look at the blueprint. You got me next to such and such. You know I don't mess with such and such. It was the beginning of the whole family falling apart.
Yeah.
Because the way he spent that story and the way he left, my daughter came over, people was cussing folks out. Mm-hmm. When we moved in that house, maybe let's say we were a family of 9. I'm just, because there's so many of us, at any given moment, I don't know how many of us it is. So let's just say it's a family of 9. We moved in that house, it was probably like 4 of us. Wow. Everybody had gone. The man had gone, the older kids, everybody had gone because it was that big. I say that to say, we get into this house. That was my dream. Nobody else had the vision, the dream. This was all me, not the man, not the kids. Yeah. We get into this house. Because mind you, me and the man had been broken up for 2 years. Wow. So when he left, we was living in the apartment. When he came back, we was in the process of this house. So while you out making another baby, I'm out getting us a house. Mm-hmm. And you happen to be able to reap the benefits because I had been telling you this dream since I've known you. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to accomplish. And you show up and you're like, Dad, you did that thing you said you were going to do. I'm all in, right? We get in this house and when I tell you all hell broke loose, so we fall apart, we come back together. Wow. And a series of things happens. One kid lost their mind. Yeah. Another kid end up in a domestic abuse relationship. Oh. Another kid gets shot 4 times and ends up in jail for killing somebody allegedly, right? Oh. He's 17 now. Whole family falls apart. Another kid breaks out in a rash. Another kid she's like barking and having like these tics that we don't understand. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, how the hell we get here? Like I damn near killed myself to give you all this life. Mm-hmm. And what I realized is, while I was working to give them this life that I thought was going to keep them safe, they were having to be quiet in those apartments, can't make noise because we're worried about getting evicted, can't make noise because you're worried about social services, have to be the perfect kids because you're worried about being taken away from your family, right? My daddy's in jail, my other dad's about to get deported, this is like they were carrying all of this stuff. Yeah. And then we get into this house, right? Yeah. And they're like, you can breathe, we can breathe too. And we can scream and we can fall out. And no one's going to take us away because we don't have the neighbors.
Because it was safe.
Because it was safe. Yeah. And that right there has made me, because all this is recent. Yeah. My son went to jail in December, right? And my son, one son is looking like he has they never diagnosed him, but he's showing signs of schizophrenia. Yep. But we were able to take care of that. So now he's back to himself. Yep. Daughter gets into a car accident with the grandbaby. Right after that, son is shot, right? Right after, so back to back to back to back. And then health started doing this weird thing. I say that to say, a lot of times we don't realize the cost of success. Mm-hmm. We think success is just about making it to that mountaintop. and getting there and just feeling so good, stretching and yawning. But success has a way, if you're not aware of it, sneaking up on you, and you don't, not only are you beat down and torn down about it, the journey that it took to get there, but the people around you. And nobody prepares you for that. Nobody warns you for that. So here it is. You've built out the nieces. You've built out, you have this podcast. Like, you are on fire, right? You're like always looking impeccable, always pleasant. But nobody knows the scars and the wounds that you went through. And the people that you love the most will hate on you because they're like, oh, who Myra thinks she is, blah, blah, blah. But Myra, they don't know Myra's catching it in ways that they have no idea. Right? And all of us are.
All of us are.
All of us are. Success is expensive.
It's so expensive. I can't even imagine going back for my PhD, even with my kids being older, and the time that it took you to carry all of those children, their emotions, their physical well-being, like all of it, financially taking care, like the shelter, all of that, and also studying and getting that PhD, running a business. It does cost.
Costs a lot. Because living in low-income housing, I ain't had none of these problems. I mean, people's getting shot every day.
Right.
You have depression.
Yeah.
But life was predictable.
Yeah.
No one, just like we talked about how no one prepares you for marriage.
Yeah.
No one tells you, they tell you how to become successful. They don't tell you about all the hits you're going to take on that journey.
Yeah.
No one tells you that on the road to being successful, that it can almost kill you. No one tells you that you have to heal after you reach that goal. It's not just like Rocky on the top of the mountain. What was that lady's name? Her name wasn't Olivia, but whatever Rocky's wife's name, and he's just screaming that name.
Yes.
Nobody's telling you that after that, you got to go somewhere and get in a tub and patch up your wounds. Nobody tells you about that. So when I moved into this big, beautiful house with all these kids, and people get upset because they're like, ain't that too much house? Between me and this man, there's 21 kids. It ain't enough rooms in here.
Right.
So your friends walk away because they're looking at you. They're like, we were okay with you being a fat, struggling, single mom. But now that you became everything that you said you were going to become, we're triggered.
Right.
But you wasn't being triggered when I was over there and couldn't eat, because that should have triggered you.
Do you feel, I know like the house that I'm in right now, when I even when we went to go put in the bid for it, I remember thinking, not big in size, but big like, this isn't anything you know.
Yeah.
This is foreign. This feels bigger than you, like almost like I don't deserve it.
Ooh.
Have you felt that on your journey at all?
You know, it's
where something
funny.
just feels bigger than you, like, but like, and because you don't have a connection to it, it just feels like you're almost out of place. And you feel small, but it's a dream or something bigger.
It's so funny you're saying that you asked this question, because so in that book Apothapisia, there's 3 chapters that I look at that kind of explores that. And I say that because when you're writing it, I'm writing about me and what I'm going through. If it resonates with you, great, right?
Yeah.
But there's a chapter, the 2 in particular, tighten the bud. And I'm like, the different versions of me are talking to myself. Because one of us is like, you're doing too much. The other one was like, girl, our whole life has been about getting here, right? And so there's that exchange, because it's triggering in me. Because when you're coming from where I came from in Chicago, you lift as you climb. You don't forget where you come from. And part of being blackness is about struggle. There's nothing about blackness that's about being comfortable unless you're a rapper or an athlete, right? And
it's like a Stila moment. Like, okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. Blackness is all about struggle. And it's about, and keeping it real is about struggling. So I'm like, where am I, on this spectrum now? Because if it weren't for my kids, I'll stay in the struggle, but I don't want them to struggle.
Right.
So there is that piece. But the Orgasm Project, and I have to talk about it from the book standpoint. So Sagashus, the author, is comfortable talking about this, but Sagashus, the woman, is like, nah, I'm still struggling with this. So the author is talking about how I am struggling in this hotel room. I'm having this long distance relationship, and we're trying to have virtual sex, and I can't do it the way that I want. He has a certain vision, I have a certain vision, and I can't get the fulfillment that I want because I'm trying to honor his vision. But then I realized that that's kind of like where I am with this house. My labor is good for everybody else. All of you all can cross the threshold, but I don't see myself walking into this house. Because as long as I'm doing it for you, it's noble. But if I'm doing it for me, it's selfish. Right? And so now there's this tension between labor, the fulfillment of the labor, crossing thresholds, whether it's sexual thresholds or the threshold of a house, right? It's about power, it's about trauma, right? And we think that the two are mutually exclusive, but they're not, because the same mindset that makes you say, I can't climax and enjoy the fulfillment of this moment is the same mindset that makes you say, I don't deserve to walk into this house that I've labored for, right? Wow. And so it's like, to hear that you've experienced that, it lets me know this is more common. And I wonder how deeply rooted it is in Blackness and in being women. Because I'm going to tell you, these men that they strutted across that threshold. My partner, there was not one moment that he felt like he didn't deserve this.
What is that? It's so crazy.
Not one moment. And baby, when he saw all them little kids that he had outside of me, baby, he ushered them right across that threshold too. And their mamas. I looked up, mamas was there for Thanksgiving. We in this, right? So I'm like, is this a woman's thing? Because he don't have this problem at all. Like, he's so happy. Right? My kids were so happy. Me, I'm like, am I worthy?
Wow, what is that? Every time I do anything, I always question myself. And I always sometimes even, you talk about like other people thinking like, oh, who does she think she is? I think that about myself sometimes. Sometimes I'll be like, well, who do I think I am? Or like, why do I think I could do this in Madison too? Like, what, am I crazy? Like there's so much self-doubt. Unworthiness I have to fight through. I mean, people don't see that. They just see you showing up because you still show up.
You still show up.
You still show up. Even if you fall, like you show up.
I think the best example I can give you, did you see the movie Sinners?
Yes.
So Stack and Mary's relationship made sense to me. Smoke and Annie's relationship didn't make sense to me.
Really?
And I'm going to tell you why.
Why?
Because I saw Smoke as Michael B. Jordan, and Michael B. Jordan would never be with a woman that looks like Annie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
But if you know Black men from the hood or Black men from Mississippi, both of those relationships made sense.
It made sense.
Both of them.
Yeah. And it was beautiful.
And they were beautiful. So if you take away Michael B. Jordan as a sex symbol, as a highly coveted man, and you just look at them as men from Mississippi, they both made sense.
Yes.
But I share that to say, Ryan Coogler did an amazing job of showing the love amongst Black people.
Yes.
He did a great job of showing community.
Yep.
He did a great job of showing intimacy, regardless of the colorism that's in our community.
The colorism, size,
all of that.
All of that. Yes.
We are the ones that struggle with it.
Yes.
Right? We're looking at that. He showed us you cannot, what he did with that movie was he showed us how we manage the horrors of everyday life.
Yeah.
And still show up in that horror as loving, supportive, and community. Yes. Right? Because normally what we're shown is A, we die first in horror movies.
Yep.
But B, we are killing each other.
Yep.
But he said, no, Black people, even in the horror,
Yes.
that you lived through.
Yes.
This is who you are.
Yes.
Now, what you do with that, that's on you, right? And so I kept struggling with the Annie and Smoke relationship because I had to say to myself, Sagashus, what do you deserve?
Mm-hmm.
Do you deserve a love like this? Do you deserve protection like this? Do you deserve safety like this? Do you deserve, and everything from the time I was a little girl. And this is why I don't personally get caught up in, when I was younger, I didn't know the word colorism, but I knew that dark skinned and light skinned girls weren't supposed to get along. But I never fed into that. I've always had relationships with Black women of all hues. And I think it's because my daddy had all the women living in the same house. So I grew up foundationally like that. But I bring that up to say, sisterhood, I understand.
Yes.
But relationships, house, wealth,
Yeah.
those are the things that I still
Yeah.
struggle with.
Yeah.
Because the message I've gotten my whole life is that women who look like you are supposed to labor. You're supposed to struggle. You're supposed to carry the burdens of the world. And so when someone is taking that layer away from me, or when I'm taking it away from myself, it's a glitch in my mind saying, go back to factory default settings. So that's my stuff. Your stuff may look very different.
Yep.
Right?
Well, for me, growing up being light skinned, so I'm biracial. Okay, so that's another layer. It's not just light skin, but I'm biracial Black.
Yes.
And so I remember not fitting in with the white girls and not like at all. Not at all. Like it just from an early age on, it's just never been my thing. So I've always been around Black girls, like my best friends and everything. And my very, very best friend growing up loved me.
Yes.
Now, I can't speak for other light skin experience. I can only speak of mine, but I want it to look like, I want it to be, I really hated my biracial identity. I didn't like how light I was. I really felt like my life would have just been easier if I would have just looked more Black.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like not so like, well, what are you? You know, all the time. And like, are you a good light skinned person or are you one of them?
Yes.
You know, like, you know, because I felt that energy in the room and I always felt like I had to fight through that. Like, no, I'm not like, because I had like met light skinned girls and I'm like, I get it. I get it. That's gross. It's ugly. It's the attitude, all of that. Get it.
Yes.
But I remember one day we had like this really hard, we were like 12 years old. I can't believe we had this conversation when we were like 12 or 11 or something like that. And she was just like crying. And I was like, what's wrong? And she's just like, I hate the way I look. She's very like already like had like a full figure. I just thought she's like a goddess. I was just like, everything about her was gorgeous. Her skin was perfect, like gorgeous, gorgeous. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, I wish I looked more like you. And I was like, girl, no. I was like, I know this sounds weird, but like I would do anything to look like you. And so we had this whole conversation, not knowing that we were talking about colorism because we were and we didn't talk about that back then, you know, but we had this whole conversation and just that conversation lives with me to this day of her. I never knew she was struggling like that. And then I don't think she ever knew the way I was viewing her until that day, you know? And so it was just a very interesting, conversation where we were so vulnerable, and just so open with each other. But yeah, I always, I just think it's just a very, interesting topic that we need to talk more about with each other.
I think that's one of the reasons why I love Sinners.
Yes.
Because you can tell Ryan Coogler loves his wife.
Yeah.
And he loves Blackness.
Yes.
Because there's a part of me where he healed a lot of that for me.
Yeah.
Sisterhood was never negotiable for me. I've always have been big on that. But what he said was, this society is going to try to play y'all against each other. This society is going to try to make you all feel less than. But in this movie, I'm going to remind you that we're protective. Because remember when they tried to kick Mary out, and he was like, she's family.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
he did so much in that movie to close the gaps that we experience.
Yeah.
Because whatever she is, because we didn't know what Mary was, right?
Right.
Whatever she is, she's family.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then Mary at the end was like, no, we want her to come on the other side with us. When Smoke and Mary made the choice that they made, and Andy made the choice that they made. So there's this sense of, in all the ways that white patriarchy have tried to divide us.
Yeah.
That Ryan Coogler is saying, no, there is a connection amongst us if we allow it.
Yes.
Because that is not who we are.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That is these systems dividing us in terms of beauty, in terms of what is more valued and what's not. Because you put all of those women together, they're all beautiful. Grace was beautiful.
Absolutely.
Right?
Beautiful.
Now she sold everybody out, but Grace was still beautiful. We love Grace.
Everyone was beautiful.
Everybody is beautiful.
You know what I wish though? And I was saying this, we talked about this in therapy, one of my clients did. We were talking about this movie.
Sinners?
Yes. I really wish with the scene with Annie, I love that they had the sex scene, and I know this is going to sound crazy. I wish that they would have went even further
I
with
was thinking
that.
the same thing.
I wish that her clothes would have been torn off. I wish we could have just seen it all, because I feel like we see those sex scenes in movies all the time. And I'm like, finally, a real woman, like, you know, real shape, all of that. Like, I want to see the intimate, like full intimacy between those two characters. I love that he did show some, but I'm like, I think they could have went further.
Yeah.
It would have been beautiful, I think. Yes.
But you know what I think, Myra? I think that we're all real women, right?
Oh, well, for sure.
Right?
Yes.
Regardless of
shape
and size. Because what'll happen is we'll switch to binary, where people are making me the beauty standard and saying you're not. And that's not the world I want. Right. I want to live in a world where I look at you and I can admire you in all your beauty and never feel less than in comparison, right?
Yeah.
That we are continuums on the same, we're different shades on the same continuum. Yeah. Right. And I think the closest we've seen that in pop culture and mainstream society is that Ryan Coogler movie, where he was like, there is Annie and Mary. Nobody thought one was better than the other. We, as the audience, are trying to negotiate that. But in that world that he created, Mary was in. Both of those men said, "What you want me to say? I love you." Both of those men loved those women.
Yes, they did.
And for a second, for 3 hours, we were able to see what it looks like when we're loved, protected, cared about, and we're able to do that with each other, even in the horrors of what's happening around us. Wow. And that's why you've always meant so much to me, because my whole brand is infamous mothers, women who've been underestimated, women who are looked at as being immoral or less than. And then you come showing up with your light-skinned self, because we're the juke joint, right? Infamous mother's the juke joint. Everybody else is over there, but you're like, no, I'm in here. And I'm in here with a presence, and I'm showing up, and I'm announcing that I'm in here. And for me, that's the work, but it's not even the work because it's so natural.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so that's why I'm like, no, make me the Lazarus in this situation. Get me up off this sick bed. Show up. Because it's Myra.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you came.
I'm happy to be here. And I love Lucius.
Yes, he's great.
Amazing. I'm like, this man sent these questions. Like, what?
Well, how can people follow your work? The book. There's the book that's coming out. You have the Infamous Mothers book that's already out. Where can people purchase? Can they go to your website, or how can we follow your Instagram?
So the Instagram is @infamous.mothers, and the book. So it's 3 books. It's the Infamous Mothers Coffee Table book. It's the Covet Disrespectful Health and Wellness Journal. And then it's the new book that's coming out June 3rd, A Pot to Piss In.
Okay, I can't wait, because I have the other 2.
Yes.
So I can't wait for this next book.
Yeah, and they're all on our website.
Okay.
Or Little Creek Press Publishing. So I think it's littlecreekpress.com.
Okay.
And we're doing a 20 stop tour residency in Madison. starting in
nice.
June, where we're going to different places whose stories intersect with the book. So one place we're going to be at is A Woman's Touch, as we talk about the Orgasm Project.
I want to come to that one.
Because that's where I bought my toys at. That's in that chapter.
Yes.
So I really want to, so I'm trying to make the book come alive.
Yes.
So that information will be on the website. So
I love that. Well, how would you define making progress?
Ooh, of all the things we've talked about, that is probably the hard question for me. It's because on the one hand, I think I want to say something that's really thoughtful. But on the other hand, I think I'm just not where I was yesterday, and I'm moving in direction towards where I want to be, but holistically. I don't want to leave. For me, making progress is, I think a lot of times people say you have to give up who you are for who you want to become. But I believe that the parts of you that no longer serve you in the way that they have, before you're quick to give them up, how do you recycle them and turn them into something else, right? Like, how do you not waste those experiences, right? I'm really big on a nothing's wasted philosophy.
Yeah.
And so progress for me is to go from where I was to where I want to be, but to do so in a way that all of me is honored, even the parts of me that I thought was ugly or less flattering. The parts that people or I might have considered shameful. Progress for me is to live a life that feels rich and whole and complete and beautiful, and finding use for those pieces that the world says I should discard.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing we can do with it, then there's nothing we can do with it. But at least try. For me, that's progress.
Yeah. That is progress. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Myra.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Making Progress with Myra Reneé. This podcast was produced by Puente Creative Studios. Learn more about the podcast and our host at myrarenee.com. Join us next time, everywhere podcasts can be heard.